In the laboratory, the counterpart to lightning is the Lichtenberg figure, perhaps the most common and fascinating form taken by electric discharge. Dendritic means tree-like branching, and dendritic forms can be easily confused with fracturing.
Exactly.
The dendritic patterns seen here are not fracturing as the term is normally understood, but electrical breakdown channels on a polycarbonate plate.
Check it out.
George Christoph Lichtenberg appears to have been the first to demonstrate the different forms taken by dust on positive and negative surfaces.
Right.
A line of investigation later followed by others, but with no impact on planetary science.
Look at the hexagon shape.
Late in the 19th century, industrialist Lord William G. Armstrong explored the power of electricity to produce exquisite forms on surfaces of different charge. The feathery qualities of Lichtenberg figures on a negative surface could be compared to the more dendritic patterns on a positive surface.
Capture lightning.
At Stone Ridge Engineering, the technology of Lichtenberg figures has produced an art form, lightning captured in clear acrylic blocks. The blocks are bombarded by electrons from a 5 megavolt particle accelerator, arriving at nearly the speed of light, but coming to a stop within a fraction of an inch into the block, a cloud of trapped negative charge. Here, the event producing the dendritic channels is triggered by a simple stroke of a metallic pin. That is all it takes for a breakdown of the insulating material and a nearly instantaneous release of charge and dendritic channels. A millisecond lightning storm frozen into the acrylic block. The branching of the electron channels gives a spectacular fractal pattern,
That is incredible, man.
apparently occurring all the way down the scale to the molecular level.
Imagine that. That's why if you know
From
electromagnetism,
what we have earlier
you're king.
presented, it is evident that planet-wide electric discharge created vast regions of raised Lichtenberg figures on Mars.
Yeah. Dendritic ridges. That's correct. Dr. Bergeron showed it in Remakers of Saturn. In the book, it showed clearly.
Laboratory experiments show that in regions of positive charge, dust will typically gather into raised Lichtenberg formations, standing out from the surrounding terrain.
Yeah, the feathering.
In fact, sharply sculpted dendritic ridge systems are abundant on Mars, showing up wherever the highest energy events are implied.
Wow.
The Great Trench of Valles Marineris is an extraordinary example. Here we find the raised Lichtenberg figures exactly where we would expect them, running down from sharp cliffs and high points in predictable patterns stretching for hundreds of miles along the trench. Yet strangely, the mystery receives almost no mention by planetary scientists.
Exactly. NASA is keeping
We
all
also
that.
observed dendritic ridges on the Great Mound of Olympus Mons, both on the miles-high scarp and on the caldera walls.
No, even Caldera. No such a thing as Caldera.
In fact, the mystery is global. We see the same pattern on the walls of major rills. We see it along the so-called fractured terrain of Noctis labyrinthus. And And everywhere on Mars, we see the dendritic
Exact
patterns
same thing.
reaching down from towering cliffs and mesas.
Check it
We even
out.
see such ridge systems descending from the rims of large craters, opening the door to a much broader perspective on crater formation.
Giving Dr. Bergeron the reason. He's correct when he showed all of it. Oh my God, what an incredible picture.
In the
Yes.
hypothesis presented here, many craters on Mars were produced by the same electrical events that created chains of craters and a great variety of channels or rills.
Well, this system is all over the entire solar system. It's not just in Mars. You will find in every
This
planet more.
discharge column sputters across the surface. Its diameter will vary with discharge energy and a narrowing or pinching by the induced magnetic field.
Right.
The pinching effect will be most strongly focused at the point of contact with the surface. The sputtering arc will leave a unique signature in the form of scalloped walls. Popular explanations say that surface collapse must have produced these cratered channels.
No, not true.
But
Never
scalloping
happened.
effects on Mars are by no means limited to chains of craters. Planetary scientists cannot agree on the forces that created this bizarre channel network north of Valles Marineris.
Oh, we know who did it and was doing it. Electromagnetic vehicles of immense sizes.
Other channels that are said to have been caused by fluid flow, either water or lava, exhibit the same scalloped walls.
Correct.
Similar, neatly cut scallops appear on the cliffs of towering mesas. And the
Olympus
so-called
Mons.
calderas of the great mountains of Mars reveal the same pattern.
Check it out right there. Victoria
Even the
Crater.
celebrated Victoria Crater, supposedly formed by impact,
Nah.
exhibits alcoves and scallops similar to those of the great rills and valleys.
Exactly. Look at the dendritic.
And the scalloped walls of Zunil Crater,
Scalloped
virtually
walls.
indistinguishable from the scalloped walls of Valles Marineris.
Mm-hmm. Scallops and ridges.
Additional patterns enter the picture as well, including a consistent global connection between scallops and dendritic ridge networks. The explanation appears to lie in the fractal nature of cylindrical
Good
current
current.
sheets.
There you go. Cylindrical
Current
object.
flow can metamorphose into secondary cylinders in fractal-like substructures. To
Exactly.
be
That's
pinched by the
exactly.
induced magnetic fields into a narrow, highly focused
Plasma
discharge.
pinch. Oh my God, Dr.
We see this
Bergeron.
interplay of different scales in the cylindrical currents of Earth's auroras as charged particles enter and exit the polar regions in an electric circuit.
Golly.
Invisible current
Incredible.
sheets, magnetically pinched at Earth's poles, divide into visible curtains of secondary cylinders,
Huh?
all dancing in the turbulence of Earth's upper atmosphere.
Whoa.
The same electromagnetic structure arising from charged particle movement will at times be seen in the electrified tails of comets.
Comments. It's an electric universe. Electromagnetic. pinch
largest
plasma
stately
deal, look.
vents carving the surface of Mars, we envision multiple columns of charged particles being pinched into a narrow discharge at the surface.
And that's what the vehicle
This
looked like
established
too.
principle will be crucial to comprehending the giant Valles Marineris with all of its accompanying chasms. Smaller scallops within larger scallops. They are the imprint of pinched cylindrical currents, constituted of smaller cylinders. The pattern occurs repeatedly and is surely no accident.
No, exactly.
Consider the consistent relationship between the scalloping effects and Lichtenberg ridge systems. The most prominent of these dendritic forms are those that separate the larger scallops.
And the smaller ones.
The smaller dendritic ridges define the boundaries between smaller scallops. At both scales, the ridge networks can be seen as the final events in catastrophic discharge activity. As charge redistribution gathered and fused to loose material into the familiar Lichtenberg patterns.
Right.
In this revisioning of Martian history, contradictions find a unified resolution in an electrical cause.
And you are right. Except that you don't know
Enigmatic craters,
who is doing it.
crater chains, dendritic ridges, scalloped craters,
Lichtenberg.
calderas and rills. All are connected to the observed behavior of electric discharge.
Negative Lichtenberg figures. Check it
Here is
out.
an image of electric arcing to a negatively charged surface, capturing the feathery discharge glow or corona. The corona is constituted of extremely fine, hair-like filaments radiating from the primary streamers.
Feathery. And you see also
The
in
surface
Mars.
affected by electric arcing. Experiments show that regions of localized charge can attract dust or sediment into a record of the electrical activity or discharge pathways, down to many fine details.
Martian surface. Look at that. Oh boy.
Here is a ridge complex on Mars, covering thousands of square miles.
And those so-called trees that
The ridge forms
JP
that puzzled
Skippers
planetary scientists for more than a
claim
decade
does
now.
not know about that. Lichtenberg negative charged surfaces.
Since standard geology does not include such forms. This
Right.
unique behavior is a logical test of the electrical hypothesis.
Right.
Examined closely, we see perpendicular, hair-like filaments illuminated by the sun,
Correct.
confirming that electric discharge attracted dust into raised relief. This exotic formation was produced electrically by D.Z. Parker on a CRT screen, showing a gathering of dust in a region of previous discharge activity.
Incredible, man.
The ridge, with its fine filaments, offers a striking counterpart to the baffling Martian formations.
Surface etching. Elevation map.
We have suggested that the northern hemisphere of Mars was eroded electrically to a depth of 5 miles or more, as seen on the
Whoa.
global elevation map. It is only reasonable, therefore, to look for transitional zones